If you're wondering why this is a slightly different angle, it's because the lighting looks atrocious from where I usually sit, and I don't want to look atrocious. I spent so much time doing this makeup, and I want it to look good on camera. Sue me. Anyways, this was my half-baked attempt at Gyaru makeup, which is relevant for today's topic. Also, I don't have lashes on, forgive me, because I had put them on my Fuggler. Hi, this is Editing Kate here. I needed to clarify because I don't think it was like obvious enough that I was trying to make a joke. Like, obviously my makeup isn't Gyaru at all. Like, it is just like the most basic makeup that I'm pretending is Gyaru. Did the joke land? I don't think it did. Because I can already see people in the comments being like, you weren't even close. I know, that was the joke. The joke was that like I did it like the K-pop artists are doing it now, where they just like do that makeup and they call it Gyaru even though it's not. Like, I don't think I made that clear enough, that my makeup wasn't actually Gyaru. Like, it was an imitation of it, right? Okay, so I'm in some like J-pop spaces, and some of that overlaps with like Japanese fashion, right? So even though I'm not a part of these subcultures, I have a little bit of knowledge about them. And one of the big debates online was people joining these fashion subcultures and then refusing to actually follow the rules to the fashion subculture, because they liked how it looked, but there was just a few things they weren't willing to do or willing to fully commit to, because it wasn't their personal style. If you don't know Gyaru subculture, basically there's an associated look, and specifically makeup look, hairstyle. It was just really funny to see like 15-year-olds on Twitter arguing with 30-year-olds who have been in the subculture for longer than they've been alive, arguing, being like, well, I don't have to wear lashes, and I don't need to do the contour or have tan skin. I can still be Gyaru without all that. And it's like, no. And they like to use that, what is it, gal is a mindset? They use that as an excuse. You know, gal is a mindset. Hyper-consumerism and capitalism has now watered down different styles and subcultures to the point where people are no longer joining these subcultures because they share the same beliefs, but because they think it looks cool and simply for aesthetics. There's a deeper issue here with specifically young people not knowing how to cultivate their own sense of style and fashion because they only know how to use words that are marketable. You know, you go on any Pinterest post and someone is in the comments going, what core is this? What would you call this aesthetic? What would you call this fashion style? What should I search to find this? And it just brings me back to that Miss K video where she's like, you don't know where to find a cami? A cami in jeans? What core is this? It's clothes core. It's I found this in my closet core. Like, what are you talking about? And it's frustrating for me because most of these fashion subcultures are actually tied to an actual subculture, you know, some anti-conformist things, like when we think of punk and punk fashion, and the irony of commercializing punk fashion and having it be something you spend money on when originally it was supposed to be just for poor kids. It was supposed to be just anything you could find scrapped together, DIYing it, making your own clothes, being anti-conformist, which means you're not shopping at the big brands to get this specific look. But now everything is commercialized. And this is a completely unscripted video, so if I sound insane or you think I'm like almost getting to a point and I'm kind of off the mark a little bit, or I'm not describing myself well enough, that's why. It's because I didn't plan to make this video. I simply was like, oh, I want to do my makeup, and then I was like, let me try this makeup. And then it made me think of this because I think so many people feel like they have to fit themselves into a very specific style without actually holding any of the values that that style comes with. I mean, we've seen the rise of conservatism And specifically this weird rise of like conservative goths, which is like an oxymoron, because if you know anything about like goth culture, it's all like anarchists and, you know, anti-conformity and anti-conservatism and anti like being a prude and a bootlicker. So I don't really understand how that became so popular, but at the same time, it's kind of painting a fuller picture into where we are right now in society, where it's just easier to buy your way into having an aesthetic or fashion sense or any sort of personal style. It's easier to just buy all the pieces there instead of actually doing the work yourself to figure out where do my values align and how can I express that on my body, you know? And so that's why we have these businesses where it's people going thrifting for you. And you say, what kind of core do you want? If you want grunge fairy core, I'll go find pieces specifically that fit in that aesthetic. So you can know what to get and know what to expect. And there's no experimentation on the other person to be like, I'm going to try other styles and see what fits. It's, I'm going to completely reinvent myself, completely clear out my closet so that I can fit into this one niche subculture. And then if I don't like it, I have to start all over again. Post 2020 COVID era, when kids were starting to go back to in-person classes in like 2022, we saw a rise of kids being like, I don't know what aesthetic I want to be this year. And they would post on TikTok like a poll to be like, should I be preppy? Should I be like goth? Should I be whimsical? Whatever. Like they would list options for people to vote on. And I'm all for kids having phases, but most of these phases are not rooted in self-expression. They're rooted in them trying to fit in. And that makes me sad because it's them trying to modify themselves in whatever way they can so that they can fit into an in-crowd group. So whatever is trending, whatever's popular, whatever makes them feel independent and at the same time not stand out too much, they're going to gravitate towards. Because they all want to be different. They want to be different. They want to be seen as unique individuals, but they're at that age where acceptance is all that matters to them. They want to feel accepted by their peers. They want to feel like they're included in things. And so they gravitate towards these subcultures that guarantee you a spot if you look like this. If you have these things, you get an automatic in. This is the it girl stuff. This is what it girls do. This is what the clean girl aesthetic is. If you do these things, you're a clean girl and therefore you can collaborate with other clean girls. You have a guaranteed opening as long as you check all these boxes. And I think that's a really harmful message to send to kids because it's ignoring the fact that not everyone's going to fit exactly in these subcultures, because a lot of these subcultures have racist undertones or they have Eurocentric features as their number one goals. We have this crazy like looks maxing epidemic going on. And I think that's a very harmful idea to push to these kids where it's like, in order to fit in this subculture, you have to basically completely change yourself and you can't ever look a different way. You can't ever experiment. You can't ever stray. And it's strange because it's teaching kids to put on a costume. I also think it stunts creativity, and especially in a time where AI is like taking over with everything, it's like killing me so bad the way that some of these people can't use a search function. Like, you could post any picture of yourself and someone's in the comments being like, where'd you get the top? Link? Link to the top? Link to the lip combo? Link? And it's like, you can't be serious. You don't know how to Google brown and pink striped tank top. You don't know how to do that. You don't know how to do that. You don't know how to use your critical thinking skills and find out the answer to a question. And I've seen this work in real time with kids because I do work in the public school district where they're doing a project. Let's say they're doing it on endangered animals, right? And their task is you need to write a one-page paper on endangered animals. I've seen these kids in real time use Google search function in the most unpractical way possible. Normally, you would expect that if you're doing a project on endangered species, the first thing you Google is what are some endangered species? and you find one that you like and you pick from that list. These kids are typing into the search bar, are giraffes endangered? No. Okay. Are zebras endangered? And when they do find an endangered animal, finally, after doing it in the most time-consuming way possible, instead of, I don't know, asking why the animal's endangered or finding out why it's endangered, is it a lack of resources? Is it due to deforestation? Is it due to overhunting? No. These kids are going to the Wikipedia pages of that animal and they're just copy and pasting the basic information, like their habitat, what they eat, their lifespan, a bunch of irrelevant information, essentially. Or it's maybe relevant, but it's not the topic of your paper because they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to look at a piece of information and go, what is the purpose of this? What is the main idea? What am I trying to figure out? They lack the critical thinking skills so badly that it starts to bleed over into other areas of their life. They can't think critically about, what do I like wearing and why do I like wearing it? They don't know. They don't know. They don't think critically into, is this an outfit that's appropriate to wear to this function? What should I be wearing to this function? And I think the lack of identity that some of these kids feel is in part due to some of their formative years being stunted during COVID. I truly do believe that. And we see a lot with these kids who can't describe themselves or define themselves outside of what they wear. Like, they don't understand the concept of having an inner world or having values or a set of attributes to themselves that isn't outside of their interests. Like, truly, like outside of their interests or their hobbies. And I think we see it a lot more in women, specifically. Like, there's a big trend of being like written by blank, girls who are written by blank. We have that random like fruit / vegetable trend where it was like tomato girls, cucumber girls. Like, you don't remember that? I think that was like last summer, where we try to just define ourselves by things that we like. Like, oh, this is a strawberry girl thing. Girls who are like strawberries, they need to have everything strawberry related. You need to purchase everything with a strawberry print on it. And I think it's because we're so desperate to give ourselves a tangible identity, something that we can connect to. And I think this lack of connection that we have with other people feeds into it, into a vicious cycle where we feel like the only way we can connect with people is if we consume the same things, if we buy the same things. If I have an Owala water bottle and another girl has an Owala water bottle, that means we're the same type of girl. That means that we have a connection, instead of just having to go over and talk to somebody to find out if you have a connection, if you have something in common. We are so desperate to see ourselves in other people without having to actually interact with them that we spend time scoping out online, on social media, through people's accounts, being like, what kind of aesthetic does she have? You know, what kind of filters does she use? What places does she go to? What pictures does she take? What clothes does she wear? What does her makeup look like? What does her hairstyle look like? Because that's all telling to what kind of person somebody is. We use fashion as these like subtle social cues to tell people, I am this kind of person. These are my beliefs. I look like this. With the rise of conservatism, where someone will look a certain way and you'd assume that they'd have a certain political ideology until you actually talk to them and you're like, oh, you're not a lesbian, you have a boyfriend and he voted for Trump. Oh, okay. But I wonder if this is a new phenomenon or it's always been like this. And maybe it's just social media has made us more aware of these nuances in human behavior, that just because we dress a certain way doesn't mean that we subscribe to that kind of subculture. You know what I mean? Every influencer's trying to sell you something. There's ads everywhere, even undisclosed ads everywhere trying to get you to buy something. There's all kinds of stuff going on behind the scenes that I don't think fashion is a reliable form of determining whether or not a person is what they present as, if that makes sense. And this is where I think the hyper-consumerism and the short attention spans start to overlap. People, especially young people, don't understand or appreciate the slow building of a style. They don't want to do any work on their part to get that item. They don't want to have to search for it. They don't want to have to investigate about it. They don't want to have to compromise or even settle and make their own. They don't want to have to put in that much effort and work. They want that item and they want it immediately so that they can immediately wear it and immediately have it in their closet. But what they're missing is that many of these famous influencers or models, a part of these subcultures, they spent years cultivating their own closet and style. They spent years collecting those pieces, hand picking them out. They didn't hire some random person on Instagram to go sift through the clothes for them to find stuff specifically for their style. They didn't hire anybody to do that. They did that themselves. They put that work in themselves. They don't appreciate the time and effort it takes to slowly start your own personal capsule of clothes. They want it immediately. They want the immediate gratification of, I have everything I could ever want in one closet. All the pieces I want, I don't have to search too hard for or spend forever scouring racks of clothing at thrift stores for. I want to be able to immediately have the link commented online so I can click it and buy it that second. And so in that way, I almost think there's an inauthenticity to some of these new age fashionistas where if you can't put in the work yourself to get that style, to get that piece of clothes, to get that coveted designer bag, to get that vintage pair of Louis Vuittons, then maybe you're not the it girl you think you are. There's nothing chic about that. That just means that you're rich and you're lazy. And we have plenty of rich and lazy people in the world. Part of the fun of being a collector and being an archivist is the hunt, the chase, the finding it in a place you'd never expect. The contacting somebody who had it in their grandmother's estate sale, you know? That's part of the fun, is the rarity of it and the amount of work it takes to uncover it and find it. It's like you're an archaeologist in a way. But these people have no patience. And so they race to find as many things as possible and to consume as many things as possible without actually stopping to ask themselves, is this a piece I want? Is it a piece I'm going to wear often? Is it a piece that I'm willing to do the upkeep for? And when I say like upkeep, I mean like, am I willing to get it dry cleaned or to hand wash it or to repair it if it gets broken? Do I know how to sew? Is it something that I'm willing to put more effort into in order to maintain it? Because the people that are willing to do those things, you can tell that they genuinely have a respect for that fashion. They have a respect for those clothes and those brands. But then there's other people who are cosplaying, pretending to care about these things. In a few years, you'll see them list everything they own on Depop for 2 times the price, by the way. And it begs the question, am I allowed to be a part of a fashion subculture if I don't have the money or the means to invest in it? What if you really, really align with the values and you love the aesthetic and you love how it looks, but you just can't afford to invest in it? Are you still a part of that subculture, or are you just an onlooker? If you have the makeup and are able to do the makeup, but you don't have any of the clothes because you don't have the money to buy the clothes, does it still count? Do these subcultures gatekeep themselves from people who don't have a certain economic status? I guess that's a good question. If someone would like to explore that further, be my guest, because yeah, I mean, some subcultures, especially the ones that rely heavily on your makeup costs money. It costs money to buy the false lashes and the lip liners and the contour sticks and the wigs and the fashion even, you know, and there's ways to do it on a budget, but things have been more expensive, especially in this country that I live in. And that's usually why it takes years and years and years for people to slowly build up their closet full of these pieces. All right, I think that's it. That's all I have to say for now. Sorry that was really long and I yapped. If you have any counter arguments or alternative perspectives to bring up in the comments, please do, especially if you're from some of these fashion subcultures. Personally, I've never really subscribed to any kind of fashion subculture. I really wanted to be emo when I was going through my emo phase as a teenager, but I lived under Catholic parents, so that couldn't happen. But I'd be really interested to hear from other people their experience with this, and if there's a bunch of new gens that are invading their spaces with ridiculous takes. Anyways, bye.